Joyous early evening. So let's talk about world peace, or gods, or time, or both, or all three. It's up to you. So, with a little bit of effort, I provide a dictionary. With a little bit of effort, I provide a storybook. But we'll start with world peace. Right there. World peace. Guaranteed world peace. Self-respect is the foundation of world peace. World peace being defined as an ideal state of harmony and not violence among all nations and peoples. Self-respect is defined as competence of being oneself from the source, practice, and application of awareness, appreciation, accountability, and healthy curiosity. Step 1 to world peace is to prove logic's ontology. Existence logic. Logic's ontology. How are we going to do that? How am I going to do that? Through Minkowski coordinates and every single word in existence. Nope, wrong book. And a dictionary. There are all the words. Not the vast majority of them, not all of them, but as many as you can fit in the however many pages. Step 2, verify A theory and thus falsifying B theory, B theology with delta E equals delta MC squared. The delta is very important. That means it's dynamic. That means it's not static. This is the equation that you use for a nuclear reactor. This one works. You don't use E equals MC squared because there's no differentiation. And step 3, verifying A theory proves the reality of memories being now T equals 0 moment experiences. And telling stories is not an experience. It's not the experience. It's a story of the experience. So step 1, logic's ontology, existence logic. To exist is a now T equals 0 moment, entropically gated thermodynamic binding energy event, an active dynamic work function, a verb. A theory, not B theology. At exactly one Minkowski coordinate, T comma 0 sub 0, X sub 0 comma Y sub 0 comma Z sub 0, nothing can exist. An isolated coordinate possesses no space-time interval because there is no second reference frame. A multi-coordinate displacement cannot be initialized, rendering the interval mathematically undefined. A true null set. DS, meaning differential. Differentials, yeah, differential S squared equals null set. Because there's no second reference frame, the rational delta equals 0 is absolute 0, not existence. A single Minkowski coordinate does not exist. Nothing exists. With 0 rational delta equaling 0, there is no possibility for comparison. Existence logic gates. A is equal to A. A has to be either equal to A or not A. A cannot be both A and not A. The 3 existence logic gates. No possibility for change and no possibility for a differential. Therefore, there is 0 kinetic or binding energy or work function. Not existence. Hello, viewer. We are talking about guaranteed world peace. World peace being defined as an ideal state. If you want to stick around, oh well. Minkowski equations, convenience versus accuracy. The coordinate convenient shorthand form. The standard textbook presentation of the Minkowski metric defines intervals S relative to an implied origin. S squared is equal to negative C squared times T squared plus X squared plus Y squared plus Z squared. In this format, the variables T, X, Y, Z are treated notationally as independent single-point coordinates. However, to perform the squaring operation, X squared, the mathematics requires these variable values to represent magnitudes, length, and duration. This notation permits a conceptual slip. It allows the observer to treat an isolated point as if it inherently possesses the physical properties of a spatial extension. Then there is the explicit accurate rational form. To maintain strict logical and dimensional accountability, the metric must be written to expose its mandatory multiple coordinate framework, either via macro displacement delta or strict differential forms d. The correct accurate formula is ds squared is equal to c squared times t sub 1 minus t sub 0 squared minus x sub 1 minus x sub 0 squared minus y1 minus y0 squared minus parentheses z1 minus z0 squared. This formation demonstrates that the intervals ds cannot be calculated using a single isolated coordinate set. The shared interval witness. Every valid iteration of the metric requires a displacement or differential on both sides of the equation. An interval of s squared or ds squared is by definition a measurement between boundaries. Between. That means there must be two. The symmetric requirement. The equation balances itself because the relational interval on the left side of the equal sign is paid for by the explicit spatial and temporal differentials dt, dx, dy, dz, or deltas delta t, delta x, delta y, delta z on the right side of the equal sign. If the relational deltas are reduced to 0, attempting to evaluate the metric at a single isolated coordinate point without reference to a second coordinate or an origin frame, the space-time interval drops to a null set, ds squared equals 0. And the not accurate Blackboard equation of E equals mc squared. This is inaccurate. That's not the equation you use to figure out to get a nuclear reactor to function correctly. The ontological status ledger. Level 1, the isolated coordinate, the null set, mathematical state, a single coordinate point, t sub 0, y sub 0, t sub 0, x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, evaluated in isolation. Structure result, delta t equals 0, delta x equals 0, delta y equals 0, delta z equals 0. Thus, therefore, ds squared equaling 0. Physical reality, an isolated coordinate point possesses a surface area of absolute 0. It lacks dimensional capacity to store a quantum state, anchor a mass energy vector, or initialize a clock. It represents a state of not existence. Level 2, the two-coordinate system, the minimum ledger unit. Mathematical state, a minimum framework of two distinct coordinate points of t sub 0, x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, and t sub 1, x sub 1, y sub 1, z sub 1. Structure result, ds squared does not equal 0. Physical reality, existence initializes when a relational gap is established between two frames. I don't like this part, so I think I'm going to actually just go like this and say, whoopty. Step 2, verifying A theory and thus falsifying B theory, proton-proton chain reactions. The three main steps. The sequence transforms hydrogen into helium through a series of distinct thermonuclear steps. Steps governed by the weak nuclear force. Step 1, deuterium production. The weak nuclear force allows, through beta plus decay, in a specific environment, and that environment is inside a star. A single quark and a single proton of hydrogen atom at H+, to undergo a change in flavor, meaning one of the three quark changes from an up quark to a down quark, creating a neutron null to 0, null raised to the 0, meaning no charge. A neutron that instantaneously forms a more stable bond with a random neighboring proton, creating a deuterium 2H. This more stable bond is stronger than the previous bond that no longer exists, by the way. B theory is now falsified because that bond will never exist again. You want to know why? Because it fills up physical space and is heavier than two single protons. Due to delta E equals delta mc squared, a positron of E plus and an electron neutron, nu sub E, are emitted, releasing 1.442 mega electron volts. of energy. Delta E equals delta MC squared. There's a deficit in that star because that positron that is emitted immediately annihilates with a nearby electron, generating 2 gamma ray photons, and with this Greek letter, I forget what this Greek letter is called, and the aforementioned neutrino V sub E. The neutrino V sub E, having no charge, but a little bit of mass at nearly light speed, instantaneously leaves the local microenvironment of the star into the macro environment of the universe forever. That deficit right there, due to that equation right there, that neutrino leaves that star at nearly the speed of light forever. It will never, ever, 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 ever be in the vicinity of that star again. Step 2, helium-3 production. The strong nuclear force causes the deuterium nucleus, 2H, to bond with another proton, H positive, to form an isotope of helium called helium-3, 3H. This step releases a gamma ray photon, whichever one, that I got to figure out what that's called, and proceeds and produces an additional 5.49 megavolt electron volts of energy. Helium-4 production. The strong nuclear force bonds two helium-3 nuclei, 3He, formed by 2 separate iterations of the first step of proton-proton chain reactions, to fuse together to create a single helium-4 nucleus, 4He, a very stable isotope. This final step releases 2 excess protons of H plus and 12.86 mega electron volts of energy. That falsifies B theory instantaneously. Those bonds were not there before. They are there now. That neutrino will never be there again. 2 new hydrogen protons right there, were created. They weren't there before. They're there now. The universe is not some static block. Just because there's a conservation of energy doesn't mean it's a static block. That 12.86 mega electron volts, that 5.49 mega electron volts, that 1.442 mega electron volts. Step 3, material mechanics of language and memory. Words have meanings. The cat climbed the tree versus the refrigerator climbed the tree. The experiment, anchor noun decoherence mechanism, replacing a primary subject noun, for example, cat, in a logical sentence with a coin flip alternative that violates physical reality, for example, refrigerator. The metric, measure the coherence fall off and the observer's ability to synchronize consciousness to a sub ELG, existence logic gates, squared, with the signal. The biometric receipt, the N400 ERP, event-related potential. A successful falsification audit should observe the N400 event-related potential, the N400 ERP. That is a negative going deflection in the brain's electrical activity that peaks at approximately 400 milliseconds after a semantic violation. The logic, if the N400 spike occurs, it is biometric proof that the brain has detected a mismatch between the consensus label word and the existence logic identity gate substrate A is equal to A. The result, validated. If the coherence plummets and the N400 spike is recorded, the existence logic gate is notarized as grounded in the T equals 0 substrate. Falsified if the coherence of the language does not plummet and the N400 and no N400 signal is triggered when the existence logic identity gate A is equal to A is replaced by a coin flip A not equal to A. The existence logic tree is false. And there's a citation, Cudis M. and Hilliard S.A., 1980. Reading senseless sentences, brain potentials reflect semantic incongruity. Words and the N400 ERP biometric anchor. Words are consensus representations of things that exist, designed to facilitate sentience. A sub ELG, existence logic gates, squared. Consciousness, 2 sentiences. A ELG sub ELG squared, and differential understanding. You need differential differences in order to understand anything. True understanding is the direct comparison of these representations against the unyielding gates of existence logic. The N400 forensic metric, a sharp spike in cortical electrical activity occurring approximately. That shouldn't be precisely. It should be approximately. That's what that means. 400 milliseconds after a node processes a semantic glitch. This is a physical measurable error message generated by the biological hardware when a spoken consensus label violates the existence logic identity gate A is equal to A. The architectural proof, hearing the phrase the refrigerator climbed the tree, triggers an immediate N400 voltage spike because a refrigerator cannot occupy a climbing coordinate within the structural mechanics of the field. This provides the language. This proves that language is not an arbitrary cultural game. It is a metabolic tool that must align with the physical T equals 0 substrate to achieve laminar flow. Memories as calibration tools. Memories are not static historical film strips stored on a hard drive. They are now T equals 0 moment entropically gated thermodynamic metabolic ionic work function events. They're determined entirely by the immediate chemical composition, chemical signature, and organ structures of the active ecosystem. This body, in this now moment, if I am to remember my first kiss, this ecosystem decides how that memory is brought into existence again, and then how it is re-encoded. Whatever this chemical, if I'm filled with not stress hormones as I am now because I'm seated in a safe structural environment. There's a little bit of cortisol because I just ate a scrambled egg, drank some water. So there's a little bit of cortisol to digest that stuff before I go to bed. But if I remember my first kiss, I'm not remembering the actual event. I'm remembering from a minute ago. The core function memory is a real-time collaborative tool used to weigh the now information pattern recognition assessment, NIPRA. When a survival relevant pattern repeats at T equals 0, the calibrated neural pathway fires with a lower metabolic impedance, increasing systemic reaction time and safety margins. The ledger rule: memory is a safety setting, not a history book. It is never an exact representation of events that have happened. It is a live experience executing via your immediate now T equals 0 moment sodium levels, potassium levels, and ATP levels, and magnesium levels, and all the other levels, whatever the snapshot of this eco is when I remember that memory. My suggestion: the start of every single interaction, the starting statement should be: the dictionary I am providing for this conversation is the Webster 2 New College Dictionary, or whatever dictionary you have present. Premise 1: divine communication is definitionally perfect, instantaneous, effortless, optimal, and omnipresent. Premises 2: actually, I don't need that. It's already at the beginning. I should delete that. That was at the beginning. We're just going to delete that. Here are the questions that every single interaction should start with. What dictionary are you providing for this interaction? I provided mine. Which dictionary are you providing? What that question does is it actually and literally gets the interlocutors on the same page. It increases possibility and potential for accurate, clear communication. It stops equivocation. If I use a word incorrectly, or you think I'm using a word incorrectly, we can look it up. If I happen to use the word not significant, and you think I've used it wrong, then we can just look it up and saying having produced or being a value obtained from a statistical test that lies within the limits for being of random occurrence. Non-significant. Removes every single claim God from the conversation, as the syllogism that we didn't go over proves. Every single dictionary is descriptive, not prescriptive. If your interlocutors claim God has not provided any words or definitions of those words and is thus using human words, then I know the meaning of every single word, and so does my interlocutor, because I have a dictionary, or I can do a simple Google search. Doesn't matter what language. It shows self-respect. I respect myself. I know what a dictionary is, how it functions. Show self-awareness and awareness of others is show self-appreciation and appreciation of others is show sympathy, aka functioning prefrontal cortex, absent of stress hormones, unnecessary stress hormones. It increases individual and interdependent safety. It stops pronoun ignorance. If you claim you don't use pronouns, I have a book that shit says that you do. Question 2, what are your surroundings? I am in a safe structure. I'm comfortable. I feel safe. Nobody's attacking me. You don't hear any gunshots outside. It actually gets the interlocutors in the same reality. If you're describing your interactions and they don't sound safe, then I'm not going to have a conversation about the syllogism. I'm going to ask why you don't feel safe. I'm going to try to get you into safety. It increases individual and independent safety. It assesses the ecosystem's biometric markers. I have a heart monitor. I have real-time now t=0 moment metrics. My heart is racing and I'm in a safe environment. There's no reason to have a conversation because something is not in accordance with the other thing. Question 3, what is your inner voice self story? The story you tell yourself about yourself, the most important story in the universe, in my opinion. Dictates how now data, information, knowledge is assessed, processed, and addressed. Whose voice is telling you that story? Is it your own voice, others' voices, a parent's voice, spouse's voice, mean kids' voices, priests, imam, or rabbi's voices? What manner is the story told to you? Friend, self-respect, competence at being oneself from the source, practice, application, awareness, appreciation, accountability, and healthy curiosity. Make eye contact with oneself in the mirror and smile at oneself. That shows self-respect. If you don't do those things, that shows self-respect bankruptcy. Make eye contact with your fellow human beings and smile at them. Practice the inverse golden rule. Do unto oneself as one would have others do unto oneself. If one does not want to be kicked in the groin by another, one does not kick oneself in the groin either. Is the voice a friend of me? Practices dwelling, regret, worrying, anxiety, remorse, kicking oneself in the groin, or is the inner voice an enemy? Toxic behaviors towards oneself. Smoking, alcohol consumption, illicit drug use. It's a measure of independent and individual safety. Question 4, what are your emotional attachments? Emotional attachments are deep, often subconscious, mental and emotional bond with people or objects that fosters feelings of safety, comfort, and security. Generational baggage, all your stories, your memories, family, sports teams, religion, rabbit's feet, and lucky socks, and words. Words should be on that list. A lot of people are emotionally attached to words. I'm not. I'm not emotionally attached to the word dog. If we want to swap dog and cat, I got no problems. As long as I know we're doing that and we're both doing it consistently, it does not hinder our communication at all. For me. But for a lot of people, they're emotionally attached to their words. Self-respect, competence of being oneself from the source, practice, and application of awareness, appreciation, accountability, and a healthy curiosity. Then I define each of those words. I'll leave that on the screen for 2 seconds if you want to read it. What is white self-respect bankruptcy? The pattern I recognize in my fellow white cisgender male fellow human beings. Those behaviors are blaming not white fellow human beings for their quote-unquote problems. Blaming not cisgender fellow human beings for their quote-unquote problems. January 6, 2021, behaviors exhibited by my fellow white cisgender, mostly male human beings, as is evidenced by news reports and self-reporting videos and pictures. Claiming to not use pronouns is white self-respect bankruptcy. Does white male self-respect exist? I personally think it does, since I claim to have it. Seems to be rare with the patterns I see and have listed above. See the January 6th example. Why am I not saying this about all my fellow human beings? Because I look and am a white cisgender male human being, and the rest of the world's population will just dismiss my observation, saying, you don't know what it's like to be fill in the blank. Female, not cisgender, not white, not male. Maslow's perch. When all levels of Maslow's hierarchy are fulfilled, and there's Maslow's hierarchy, Physical needs are here on the bottom, safety needs above that. Here are our fellow human beings that live in North Korea. Here, when those that are fighting for this, when this is met, then they can work on their safety needs. When that's met, then you can work on love and belonging. When that's met, you can work on your esteem. When that's met, you can work on self-actualization. And there's my chair right there. Right there. There's my chair. Look, see it? Is that you in the chair next to me on Maslow's perch? When all levels of Maslow's hierarchy are fulfilled and one has self-respect, one is perched on top of the hierarchy, aka Maslow's perch. The Barca lounger on the beach. Envision the most comfortable Barca lounger ever created. Now envision two such chairs lined up on the most beautiful beach in existence. I'm sitting on one, comfortable, relaxing, drinking a mock pina colada. I notice the other Barca lounger is empty. Curious, I look at the beach around me. I see my fellow white cisgender male human beings lying in the dry sand, shoving their own faces in the sand and screaming, "Help me." I look at the tide pools left behind the receding waters, other fellow white cisgender human beings, a few fellow human beings of color, and a few transgender fellow human beings are lying in 2 inches of water, shoving their own faces into the silt and screaming, "Help me, I'm drowning." I look further out into the shallows and see the same fellow human beings kneeling in the water, kneeling in the knee-deep water, faces submerged, screaming, "Help me, I'm drowning." Further out in the deep swells, there are other fellow human beings who are actually drowning. They are screaming. They aren't screaming. They're fighting silently for survival. I'm not strong enough. I'm not a strong enough swimmer to reach them. I use my comfort, lack of stress hormones, and my prefrontal cortex, sympathy, aka emotional intelligence, to assess the situation. I realize the most efficient and optimal path to saving those in deep waters is to recruit my fellow white cisgender male human beings on the beach in the sand. I walk up to my fellow white cisgender human beings, face down in the dry sand, bend over and say, "Look at me. We are safe. Look at me. We are safe. Maybe we can help the others." But they refuse to stop their screaming. They continue to shove their own faces into the sand, gripped by the quote-unquote survival story, screaming, "Help me, I'm drowning." Question 1, where are you in this analogy? Question 2, are you in the chair sitting next to me? Question 3, are you in the deep waters? Actually, maybe I should just put drowning. Question 4, are you swimming out to help your fellow human beings in the deep waters? Question 5, or are you drowning in the sand? Are you a spigot or a spring? Envision a natural spring. Now place a cylinder, open on both ends, on top of the spring. This is the vessel. If the spring is weak, it cannot fill the vessel. Nothing around the vessel gets watered. If the spring is stronger, it fills the vessel and maybe a little water spills over the sides, watering a few things nearby. Now envision a spring so strong, the water floweth over. Everything around the vessel gets watered. A natural marshland and streams are created and flow from the vessel. The source of the spring is the inner voice self story. My cup is not half full or half empty. My cup floweth over. Now envision a spigot. Some vessels have spigots installed. By the vessels and other vessels, families, friends, identities, and stories, water is diverted from the vessel to fill someone else's half-filled cup/vessel because their own spring is not strong enough to fill the vessel. This prevents the vessel from ever flowing over. This prevents the vessel with the installed spigots from ever flowing over. Some spigots are poisoned. Drama, stress. When installed, they poison the spring and divert the water at the same time, sometimes killing the spring entirely. I have removed all spigots. Now everything around me gets water because fertile marshlands surround me and nutrient-rich streams flow from me. The vessel. The spring. inner voice self story. And then I have a list. Behaviors of a human practicing self-respect. The individual operates from an internal logical locus of awareness, appreciation, and healthy curiosity. The self is the source of respect and action, and their actions are a practice of aligning with reality and logic over emotional impulse or social quote-unquote pressures. The thoughts and perceptions, they're logically consistent. A reality, you accept reality. Source analysis, when encountering a problem, they are compelled to analyze its source rather than focusing only on the symptoms. Definitional precision, using words based on their literal dictionary definitions to ensure clear and logical thought. Curiosity and appreciation, actively practices awareness to understand the quote-unquote how and why of systems, ideas, and other human beings. Their actions, their interactions with systems and others, and then behaviors of humans not practicing self-respect. How they think. Logical contradictions easily hold two or more contradictory beliefs because it is socially convenient or emotionally comforting. Cognitive dissonance. Reality avoidance ignores, denies, or seeks to ban facts of reality that are unpleasant, inconvenient, or emotionally triggering. These are not behaviors of a fellow human being with self-respect. These are behaviors of self-respect bankruptcy. These are the actions. This is how they interact with other systems. The end. I'll put that link in the description. We're 32 minutes and 26 seconds in. One person viewed for 2 nanoseconds and then left. So I guess we'll just end there. World peace does not seem to be a priority for my fellow human beings. They don't even want to talk about it. Enjoy the evening. Enjoy the weekend.